Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to yet another fantastic version or episode of the People Side of Software, held now virtually. Normally, we do these things at the WeWork National Building downtown Chicago and a variety of different locations in New York City, but we're combining our two meetups here virtually because, well, we can. So tonight, I'm going to be one of the speakers. I'm also one of the hosts, along with Jeff Molesky. Rosanna was not able to attend tonight. But she is also one of the hosts of the People Side of Software, where we talk mostly about, you guessed it, people-related things in the software industry. A word from our sponsor, us. So we are responsive advisors. We're business advisors. We're consultants that work with companies that are trying to get a little bit more agile. We do that through a number of means: consulting engagements, training, professional coaching, things like that. And you can all see my screen okay? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And so all of our training classes are now being held virtually because, well, nobody wants to get a virus. So I get it. And hopefully we'll be able to see people soon, maybe by September, and we'll have real in-person classes like the old days. But anyway, you can follow us on YouTube. We push a lot of content. I've got a video blog series called Agile B-Sides, mostly because I like record players. And just agile topics of the day, things that come up in my classes, I'll usually put on video and put up there. And we've got a little over 500 subscribers now, so it's growing pretty quickly. So you can follow us there, check out the videos if you like. This video will be up there too. So let's talk about what we're here to talk about today, and that's the Scrum Product Owner. That is a topic that I've found myself crashing into recently. I do a lot of trainings for product owners so that they can get Scrum.org certifications. But about a year and a half ago, I became a product owner, and I'm calling it the hard way. I didn't apply for a job to be a product owner. I just kind of became one. So I'll tell you a little bit about that story, a little bit about what a product owner would normally do on a day-to-day basis and how I've plugged into that role here. So, whoops. Basically, I got a promotion. It was, let's see, when did it start? When my company started years ago, we were dealing with all these students and all these classes in different regions. And you're talking like, I don't know, we've had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 students over the last few years. So it's a lot of information to try to manage in spreadsheets, especially if you're trying to make sense of it. And so things I wanted to find out were how many times did we have to cancel on a particular individual before they actually got into a course, because that pisses customers off. Other things were how many times do we actually cancel courses, or what's the average student count in some of those classes. And the only way to know that was to collect the data and start looking at it over time. But we were working with spreadsheets, and it was making it cumbersome. It was very easy to fat finger the data and end up making some mistakes or accidentally break some of the linkage between multiple sheets. And long story short, software had to be built. It just took a while to get there. And so basically one Christmas day, I had the day off, didn't have any family things to do. I cracked open Visual Studio and started remembering how to code. Now, I'm a recovering programmer. Before this activity, I was not writing any code for any reason ever for about 5 years. And so there's a lot of dust that I had to knock off my head in order to get started. But I did. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. So, covered all that. Next slide. Oh, there we go. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit in the beginning here about product owners. Who here is a product owner currently? Got one hand raising, a couple hand raising. A lot of you are behind your images, and that's fine. You could at least put up like a picture of Hello Kitty or something. We got a thumbs up, 2 thumbs ups. Okay, we've got lots of product owners out there. So a lot of people believe a product owner is a glorified business analyst, meaning their job is just to go get all the requirements and to perfectly document them and to hand them off to a dev team and will somehow be successful. Okay, that's one way to be a product owner. It's just not a super successful way to do it, or I should say I wouldn't expect the highest benefits from that. And we'll talk about that in a second here. So let's actually dig into this spectrum of product owners that I see out there and that we talk about in our classes. And so I borrowed this from the folks over at scrum.org. I make sure they get their credit for this graphic. I didn't make it. So what you see here is the expected benefits as a product owner becomes more and more business aligned. Way on the left-hand side here, they're basically just receiving orders. They're answering a phone call and going, yes, ma'am, I'll get that to you right away, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'll get that right away to you too as well. And now they got to try to figure out which one to do first. Often it's whoever yelled at them the loudest. That's the thing they're going to get in their queue and start working on. These people are basically scribes. They write the requirements. They do what they're told. They don't challenge anything. They don't really have a vision for this product. Even if there were a vision, they wouldn't know what it is in most cases. But now let's step a little bit further ahead. Let's say that there's somebody that comes out of the business, and this person has a little bit more authority, a little bit more pull, knows the right people to get things done. Maybe we call them a business representative, or maybe even a sponsor for the product. And in some rare cases, you have the product owner type that is more of an entrepreneur, the person that maybe funded the product, the person that cares very deeply about its success because their boat payments will be affected if it doesn't do very well. Well, that's the kind of product owner I became. It is a product for my company. I'm funding it. So I guess I had to learn very quickly how to be the entrepreneurial product owner type, which means I suck at writing user stories. So let's talk about it like this. Product owners in reality do these kinds of things, at least according to the way we teach it in our Scrum classes. They act much like an agile product manager. So who here is familiar with the role of a product manager in most organizations? Yeah, these are pretty senior level people. Sometimes they sit on the marketing side. They're going to talk about higher level business requirements. They're going to be involved in the finance. They're going to be involved in meeting with customers and getting user feedback. But oftentimes they're disconnected from the teams building the stuff. And that creates a little bit of a game of telephone. So with Scrum, the idea is we're going to have a person that knows all of those things and does all of those things, work with the development team that actually builds this stuff. And there's more to it than that. I'm sure all of you are Scrum educated, so we'll just move beyond that part for now. Maximizing value delivered is very important, especially to an entrepreneurial product owner type, because, well, there's only so much money and we want to get as much to our customers as we humanly can. And the only way to do that is to not do the stuff we really don't need to be doing today. We can do that stuff tomorrow if it's still valuable. Typically, they're going to have some sort of a product vision, some sort of a view of the future that maybe few others see. And this is how they're guiding the shape of their backlog. They're going to be going after certain key markets, going after certain customers, following markets very closely, and aligning their vision towards achieving these goals with these bigger picture ideas in mind. So obviously they work with the stakeholders and customers. That's not surprising to anybody. But how much do you work with them? Is it just you're taking orders from them, or you go hang out with them at their desk, see what they're doing, understand their problems maybe better than they do, so you know how to shape the product? A product owner that can do that learns tons and tons from their audience and from their stakeholders. So understanding the market, I think that's a pretty obvious thing. If you don't understand where your product fits in the world, what its pricing should be, you're likely to sub-optimize the value you deliver. How would you know what features to build if you don't really understand the market in which you find yourself? And then release planning. This is something most product owners have to do. I don't do a lot of it because we don't really do very big releases, at least not yet. We do minor releases. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that release process here after I get more into how I've taken to the role of being a product owner. And this other part, communicating customer needs to development team. Well, since I am the development team, that's a pretty easy job so far, but I don't expect to always be the only development team here. So I do keep notes. I track kind of where my ideas are going, and in case I end up working with a team that helps me out, they'll have something to start from. All right, on being a product owner. So the product that we built, that I've coded, it's basically a system to manage the students and the classes that my company trains on a regular basis. And I think I said earlier, we're teaching probably 1,200 students a year, and just going up every year. These people are from all kinds of different cities all around the country and around the world, and it's just helpful to be able to have a centralized place to know who's in what class, when they attended, when they registered, all that stuff, to be able to report on it later. Everybody in my company's had different needs for it, so we'll look at a little bit on that later. But we wanted it easy for trainers to get at the student list. If I'm teaching a course, I want to be able to very quickly go, oh, hey, is everyone here in the class? Yep, I've got everyone on this list. It's a really quick button, generates a report. It's really easy to do. When it was in Excel spreadsheets, it was cumbersome. Easy for a course manager. So we have, Rosanna works with us on a lot of the coordination. She's also one of the hosts here, but she's with us tonight. And so she's managing which students are in which courses, and when she's got to move someone from class A to class B, she wants a system that makes that easy and not have to manipulate spreadsheets. We want to be able to report on this, financial reporting, reporting on average number of students, all these kinds of things had to be baked into the system. So we did start with spreadsheets. We used those for about 2 years until this thing got up and running. And that's where it kind of started. Now, the funding side of things, I didn't go and talk to Facebook and get, $40 million of seed capital, or, a VC firm that wants, 50% ownership. No, this was sweat equity. This was me on my weekends, nights, doing work on airplanes, or, taking days off of my regular job in order to do this one. So also building it up on my company's dime. So when Jeff's teaching a class and I don't have a class to teach, then I'm probably working on this system here to build it up. And yeah, that's pretty much great. This is as grassroots as it gets. So the customer was basically my team. That was the first customer. And I felt like if I could at least get one customer, I could prove that maybe other customers somewhere out there exist. And all I got to do is find them. So with my team having such diverse needs, I got, I think, a pretty good cross-section of features in the system already that might be applicable to another training business. Now, whether they teach Scrum or underwater basket weaving is irrelevant. The idea of a class and a student and an instructor and all the information and interconnections between them is pretty universal. And from what I can tell, there's only a handful of systems in the world that do this. So I had some different needs as a business owner, a lot of them around performance of the company and performance of the classes that we're teaching, making sure that we're running them in the right area, that we're priced right, that are just a lot on the marketing side as well. So anyone here ever build software from scratch and try to take it to market? I guess if your face is not up there, just, put a little hands, the thumbs up thing. So we've got one person so far, just the one. Got two. Yeah, it's I'm learning it's not easy. But we're getting there. I'm really close, actually, to a first version that other customers are going to start using outside of us. So my big problem has been focus, and I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with that. When you're doing multiple jobs at the same time, it's very difficult to make progress on any of them. So 5 jobs. I mean, I'm a Scrum trainer. So when COVID wasn't a thing, I was flying around the world teaching classes. I still teach some of them virtually. I manage all the operations of the company behind the scenes, do all kinds of boring work like chase down invoices and talk to my lawyer and all that stuff. Trying to run the company and set us in the right direction. And recently we had all kinds of problems with our email server, so I'm having to play CTO. But then, of course, I'm a developer on this course system and the product owner for it. So my time is split really, really in very, very many directions. It makes it very challenging to make progress on this course management system. Lots of coffee helps. But so here's how I manage this. Basically, I made sure that every feature I built was extremely bite-sized. If I went a week before a feature was deployed, that would be a long time. And that was a long and scary time, because here's why. If I'm in the middle of a feature and I've got the code all cracked open and nothing works, and then I get pulled off into one of my other 5 or 6 jobs, it may be a while before I get to go back in there and start fixing what I was working on. And I start to forget what I was doing, or why is this broken, or what's going on here? And I have to relearn the code so that I can get going again. So I aim to just develop very, very small micro features, solving micro problems, fix or test them, check them into source control, deploy them as soon as possible and start getting some value out of it. That way, if I have to stop working on it for an hour, a day, a month, I'm at a good breaking point. Now, this is just a good technique for any development team to be doing. You do this usually during backlog refinement, where you're going to go through your backlog, find micro problems that can be solved in a very short amount of time. And the pressure for dev teams is really just, can the thing be done in a 2-week sprint? That's a pretty low bar. But could you break it down to things that could be done in 24 hours? That would be harder to do, right? But you could then start getting into the flow of continuous delivery and every day having something out there for your stakeholders if you were doing that as a software team. But this is what I kind of have to do being my own developer for these other reasons. Yeah, leaving good notes is really important. So I've been working on this now a year and a half, and I did some research on the market, like who already makes a system? Why should I build a new one? What are they charging? What should I charge? And I kept all that research in a OneNote file. Haven't looked at it in a bit, but I'll go back to it when I'm playing product owner role again and more market research. But saving good notes so that like when I come back later, I've already forgotten that stuff. I'm gonna have to go read my notes again. I saved links to all those different competitors so I can sort of see where they're at after a year and a half of not looking at them. And then backlog ideas. I don't have Jira or anything fancy. Part of what I do, I just write things on Post-it notes. But if it's going to live any longer than a month on my desk, it's going to probably go in Jira. So I'm not writing user stories, but I will write requirements in such a way where I have a general idea of what the feature is supposed to be. And then once I get there, I'll refine it a little bit further. So that's kind of how I'm dealing with the focus problem. So far, my learnings. Getting to MVP ASAP was a really, really important thing to do. And the reason for that was, we were using these spreadsheets. They were brittle. It was just getting worse over time. I had no way to report on information without trying to use pivot tables in Excel or just do really funny things with their pie charts. And so I wanted to get something useful and start learning from it as fast as I could. And so we did. Rosanna was basically our first customer. And then with all the rest of us working in the system, even my back-end accounting guy, he goes in there and reconciles the sales data with the actual people that attended the course, just to make sure that the numbers are all aligning. So he has different reasons to be in the system than all of us, none of which I would have really predicted before I released this system in the first place. So by getting it out quickly, I started learning a lot rather than trying to predict the future of every feature that should be in this system. So have any of you ever gotten to a point where you release an MVP really, really, really quickly, like months after starting an effort? Or even sooner? Got a couple of yes? Did you notice similar results where you immediately start incorporating that feedback that you would have never got without releasing in the first place? Yeah? So if you're not familiar with the concept of an MVP, I wouldn't say it's owned by the book, The Lean Startup, but they talk a lot about it in there. Minimum viable product. It's basically the smallest product you can get to market and start learning from it. I mean, ideally, you're generating revenue off of it too, or some sort of cost savings. For us, it was cost savings and data quality. Another thing I learned, watch your users. Sometimes they have problems and you don't know it because they don't put in a feature request. So just go hang out with them. Watch how they use the system. You'll be surprised at, wait, why are you doing it that way? You know, there's a button that makes that a lot easier. It's right there. Or you find that they're having trouble using the system in such a way that you realize there's a feature enhancement that that should exist. Like, you know, they're hitting the back button 6 times because there's not a fast way to get to a screen that they're trying to go back to. So I've learned a lot just by observing the people using the software, talking to them, hearing their requests, trying to flesh out the why behind those requests so I don't just go add whatever thing somebody asks for, but more try to solve their problem, not necessarily just put another field on the screen. So learned a lot about, my users that way, workarounds. And now in terms of prioritization, this is a problem a lot of companies and a lot of product owners have. They suck at prioritization. Why? I don't know. They don't have backbone. They don't know how. They don't have a proper technique. Any other ones you guys have heard of? Why people are terrible at prioritizing their software backlogs?
They're afraid of disappointing their stakeholders.
Okay. Don't want to disappoint stakeholders, sure. Any others?
It's really hard to discern everything, right? So there can be a lot of competing items, and they all might be about the same level of value. You're just making a cut at some point, and that's hard.
Yep, it can be really hard to do. Definitely a hard job. So for me, I don't have anyone to answer to really, except for my own internal customers. And the best way I could handle prioritization is just, if I don't have to do it, it's going down that backlog. Lately, the most important thing is the multi-tenant database, such that I can have multiple customers and even a demo account on the same production system that we use every day. So there's no data bleed. A lot of ways to do it, but at the end of the day, that's been the most important feature. All other user experience and UI enhancements have been pushed down that backlog, even though I want to do them because they're sexy and they're fun and everybody's going to like it when, you know, some of these visual glitches go away. It was more important to get the multi-tenant system up and running so that we can make progress towards getting other customers on the system. But yeah, prioritization is tough. And I like my Trello board, I go through it regularly and just like, what can I do later? What can I do next month? What can I never do? And just try to get that stuff off the backlog so that it's not bogging down my mind. But very important to do, especially if you're an entrepreneurial product owner. So what's going on with us next? So the future of this system is now that I've got it to a multi-tenant setup, and I'm going to create this demo account, I'm going to start shopping it out to a couple of my friends that are also trainers and see if they want to join on and see if they like the system and can give me feedback on it. But I plan on finding some real customers, hopefully within the next few months. And so I've got a digital marketing team already preparing some of the copy and some of the information that's going to help push this out in the world. Talking with some branding people that are going to help me create graphics and a name for it, because our internal name is so boring and generic, and the domain isn't available. So I need a better name. But yeah, and I just talked to my lawyer today. We're talking about setting up the company structure around this so that Responsive Advisors isn't liable for that, I don't know, legal stuff. Apparently, you know, you can get sued and then they take everything. So yeah, we're working on trying to get the first real customer. And what I mean by real customer is the one that pays us money. And when they start paying us money, I can start hiring developers. So that's kind of the goal for this year, is to get to a point where we have enough paying customers to at least cover my costs on development. But this, I guess this is kind of it. Just a real life in the trench situation. I became a product owner. I didn't necessarily intend to be one. But here's where I'm at. I kind of just grew into the role, and as this expands and scales, I expect I'll probably run into some of the challenges larger product owners face, like multiple development teams, maybe in multiple time zones. How do you work with all of them and keep the focus on the vision and keep making incremental progress? So right now my challenges are they're just different. They're small, lack of focus problems. I just wear too many hats. But I'm looking forward to having all those bigger problems. Well, we're at about time. Thank you guys all for coming. I hope you got some value out of the presentation. It was just something I thought I'd share with you guys at one of the meetups. So again, thanks for coming. Hope to see you at the next, and that's all for now.